This is episode 28, September 4th. I'm Philip Koerper, and this is the Philip Koerper Show. Excited to be with you guys here today. Talk a little bit about the David Kavanaugh confirmation hearings in the Senate. I want to mention an article that Juan Williams talks about how the real news for Donald Trump is that the Senate only represents 18% of the people. Therefore, I guess the Constitution needs to be changed. Nike is supporting Colin Kaepernick. Ted Cruz is reporting on this. These confirmation hearings are a little bit out of control. Play a little video from that and a few other items. And then I want to close with an uplifting scripture and actually a little story. So I want to start off with this. Senator McConnell posted this on Twitter, and I wanted to show just a little bit of this here.
Respond to that.
What we've heard is the noise of democracy. It is not mob rule.
My colleague, Chairman, I could just respond. Mr. Chairman, if I could just respond. Chairman, if we could just respond to that. Mr. Chairman, I appeal to be recognized on your sense of decency and integrity.
We cannot possibly move forward, Mr. Chairman. This hearing should be postponed.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn.
Directly from Judge Brett.
This is the execution of a strategy by Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer.
The Democrats right out of the box delay the hearing, postpone the hearing. You're not being fair. It's all about politics.
It's Alice in Wonderland. President Trump and the Russian investigation. Watergate. You only have to look at Watergate. You're like the Forrest Gump of Republican politics. And I didn't vote for Jeff Sessions. President Donald John Trump. You're smart. And you're a fundamentally decent, good person. As I was saying, and it's
Okay, I think that's I think that's enough of that. Hashtag resist. Okay, the Democrats have just gone crazy. They're just totally freaked out. They just don't know what to do. Okay, why are they going so crazy right now? Senator McConnell's his tweet said the hyperventilation and orchestrated antics of this morning's hearing won't persuade anyone. That's because they don't have the votes. They do not have the votes to stop this. We have 51 votes, 51 Republican senators now. John Kyle has been confirmed by the governor of Arizona to replace John McCain. And so they don't have the votes. And they're going to have Democrat votes already. Joe Manchin from West Virginia. Joe, can't remember his last name, from Indiana. You've got other people you've got Senator McCaskill from Missouri, very red state. Bill Nelson, a Democrat senator from Florida, under a lot of pressure. Florida very red right now, voted for Donald Trump. So Lisa Murkowski, I think from Minnesota, she's a Democrat senator under a lot of pressure. I can't remember where she's from, maybe Michigan, can't remember off the hand. But these are like 6 Democrat senators who are in very red states, and they're very, very likely to vote for David Kavanaugh. David Kavanaugh has been on the D.C. circuit for a long time now, and he looks at the Constitution. He's got a great record, great credentials. The Democrats really don't have a prayer in stopping this. I liked when Mike Lee opened and talked about how we didn't even have these hearings, public hearings, until about 100 years ago. So the Senate, this is kind of a field day here for them. On both sides of the aisle, they can just go off and do their public service announcements. and say why they're pro Kavanaugh or against him. But the bottom line here is that this doesn't really matter. David Kavanaugh is going to be confirmed to the United States Senate. Doesn't seem like there's going to be anything to stop that. So anyhow, the Democrats are gone, like we've seen before. They take everything 11 out of 10. They just go crazy. And now they're disrupting these hearings. Maybe this is good. Maybe we'll just stop having these hearings. And they can just meet in closed doors and not make this a public spectacle and just confirm the nominee. So anyhow, I think this is a really interesting. I like what Ruth B. Ginsburg did when she was being nominated for the Supreme Court. She really just refused to answer any of these questions that are leading in trying to refer how she would rule on any ruling, future ruling. And so she would just look at the facts of the case. I love that. I think that's really how it should be. I wanted to mention, I came across this article from Juan Williams. Okay. And it's from The Hill. Trump's majority is fake. Okay. So his majority is fake. I mean, you gotta really, this is really kind of shocking, I think. I mean, that Juan Williams is a serious journalist. This is really amazing. It starts off, President Trump likes to complain about fake news. Oh, by the way, I have a cold. I'm getting over a cold. That's why my voice is like this. So here's some very real news for him. Republican control of Capitol Hill and the White House is based on fake majority. A majority of the Senate now represents just 18% of the nation's population. This is from David Wasserman's article in the New York Times, of course. So listen to this. He added that the crucial Senate seats this November would be much wider, more rural, and pro-Trump than the nation as a whole. In effect, geography could again be Mr. Trump's greatest protector. After all, the Senate, not the House, will have the final say on any impeachment proceedings. One interesting fact that I think we're going to see about increased possibilities of increased blacks and Hispanic votes for Republican candidates. Supposedly, at least there have been some polls to show that the black support for Trump has doubled up to 30%. So this will be fascinating to see. And so Juan Williams goes on, think about this. America's politics are being run by a cabal in the Senate that fails to represent 82% of the American people. Okay, so you know what's going to happen here. Okay, why is the Senate run by the Republicans? Because they have 51 senators. Okay, that's why. That's what the rules are. It doesn't matter how many people live in your states. The Constitution was definitely set up to give states, the small states, equal power and representation. Okay, so the big, huge states would not overshadow the rest of the country. It keeps this balance of power. Really, the beauty of the United States is the power that we put into the states and distribute that power. We have federal power and we have state power. These governments are interacting with each other and keeping the other one in check. It's brilliant. The Founding Fathers were just absolutely brilliant, and I think inspired by God to come up with an incredible system here. Okay, but Juan Williams is not getting his way. Okay, was Juan Williams complaining about the Constitution and the way the House of Representatives and the Democrat Senate worked back when Obama was in power? No, he was very happy, okay, because he was getting his way. His issues were going his way. But 2016, we had an election. Donald Trump's president. We have a Republican Congress. We have a Republican Senate led by the Republicans. So Juan Williams is not happy. So he loves this article And he talks about, well, we're going to have to do some changes in the Constitution because this is just not fair. Okay, he goes. And then he goes on and about the tyranny of the GOP tax cuts and blah, blah, blah. The 18% Senate majority passed tax cuts that overwhelmingly benefited the wealthiest 1% of Americans, blah, 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 blah. We always hear all this. Okay, you know, taxes are paid proportionally by the top 5% of American income earners. Okay, so whenever there's tax cuts, they're going to get significant tax cuts if it affects all taxpayers. Oh, so he goes on and quotes all these really bizarre polls and just, you know, like really we care. He goes on and on about polls. You know what, Juan? We had a poll in 2016. We did a poll and we figured we wanted to know in America who was going to be president of the United States. Was it going to be HRC or Donald Trump? And guess what? Americans picked Donald Trump. Oh, okay, that was the poll. That was the poll that really mattered, Juan. Okay, and I just love it. You know, he doesn't like the way this is set up. Okay, you know, he doesn't like how this Senate majority represents less than 1/5 of them. He doesn't like all this. And then he talks about HRC won with 3 million votes. Okay, who in California? She beat Donald by 3 million votes. Excuse me. And we don't know how many of those were from illegal aliens. Okay, we don't know. All right. This is why we have a decentralized voting process. So if one state is going to let illegal aliens vote, make it very easy for them to vote, and it's been proven that some did vote and their votes were counted, they're not citizens of America, they voted for our president. Well, but, you know, of course, they didn't vote probably for President Trump. They voted for HRC. And so Juan Williams needs to go back and look at the Constitution. Okay. And if he wants to change the Constitution, we have amendments. He doesn't talk about any of that. He just gripes about how unfair this is and how the polls say this and the polls say that. Okay. And then he goes on about he's in love with John McCain. And I saw a picture of Twitter with Juan Williams and his son with John McCain. Okay. Any never Trumper is good for Juan Williams. So, just really interesting. I came across this article which talks a little bit about Juan Williams and, you know, and he's really basically talking about the cities. You know, you see the map of the United States, and it's pretty much all red. If you look at the counties, which way they voted, either for Trump or HRC, it's all red. Okay, you just look at it because most of the counties voted for Donald Trump. But those counties in the cities, okay, overwhelming Democrats. They are blue, blue, blue. It's like in Kentucky, I've said many times, only 2 counties in Kentucky. We got a lot of counties in Kentucky. I don't know how many. Only 2 counties in Kentucky voted for HRC. And that's Jefferson County, which is Louisville, and Fayette County, which is Lexington, the 2 big cities. Okay. And so the cities are very liberal. I love this article from Planetism, like Planet and Citizen Squished Together.com. And this is an article way back in 2006, but it's hilarious because it talks about Thomas Jefferson. And I thought about him, and that's why I searched for this. And this is an article that says Thomas Jefferson, the founding father of sprawl. Okay, so Thomas Jefferson hated big cities. He hated them. Of course, back then, that's where all the illness was. So if you were sick, you try to, you know, Alexander Hamilton, when he was sick and with his wife, they moved out of this New York City so he could recover. His in-laws, I remember, I think, lived out of the city up north. And so this guy blames urban sprawl on Thomas Jefferson because Thomas Jefferson hated cities. Okay, and this is really hilarious. And Thomas Jefferson did say, Let's see. He said, the mobs of great cities add just so much to support a pure government as soars due to the strength of the human body, Jefferson wrote. And this guy's quoting him. This guy who wrote this article is Leonardo Vasquez. Yeah, they don't like urban sprawl. The liberals are very bossy. They all want us to live, crammed together in cities so we can walk to places so we don't break any carbons. Okay, don't want to do that. Okay, they're really into this. So this is really funny. And then Jefferson told Madison, this guy quotes, I think our governments will remain virtuous for many centuries as long as they are chiefly agricultural. And this will be as long as there shall be vacant lands in any part of America. When they get plied upon one another in large cities, as in Europe, they will become corrupt as in Europe. I mean, I love it. TJ hated big cities. And look how corrupt big cities are now. Look at the murders. Look how they're run. Look at all these different issues we have in big cities. So Ted Cruz tweets, he tweets, when a radical anti-Semite, okay, so he's referring to Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Sorry, I can't pronounce it very well. This is a former dictator of Iran. And that guy tweets that hashtag NFL season will start this week. Unfortunately, once again, Colin Kaepernick is not on an NFL roster, even though he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Hashtag Colin Kaepernick, hashtag NFL. Oh, wow. So we've got a former Iranian dictator promoting Kaepernick. Well, then Nike decides to put Colin Kaepernick on their face of the Do It slogan. I mean, this is really depressing. I'm a runner. I love Nike stuff. It's like an American company. I liked my allegiance to Nike, and now I'm embarrassed. I'm totally embarrassed. And Nike's doing that. And then Ted Cruz is running against this Beto O'Rourke guy, this El Paso congressman. And Beto is he's in love with Colin Kaepernick also. I mean, this is just hashtag resist. Colin Kaepernick, I think, is a lot more popular with the left right now because Trump stands against him. So now we've divided in our echo chambers and we yell and scream at each other. So anyhow, there you go. So the Democrat is going to be real supportive of Colin Kaepernick, who hated the police, and wore those socks. The police are pigs. I mean, okay, there you go. I don't think this is not going to win over middle America. Ted Cruz also tweeted that the guy he's running against him in Texas for the Senate, because Ted Cruz is up for re-election. And by the way, all the press, when I Google this, it looks like Beto O'Rourke is just going to beat Ted Cruz. Okay, I highly doubt Ted Cruz is going to lose. But we'll see. But anyhow, the media is really trying to pump Beto up. And so Beto is using the F word, the F bomb, like everywhere, supposedly. And Ted Cruz put together a montage of that and said, yeah, be careful of your little kids coming to one of Beto's rallies. It is true, the F bomb is becoming more commonplace in our language, which an old guy like me, I mean, it's not very exciting to hear that. I mentioned that John Kyle is now going to replace John McCain now and hold his seat in as senator in Arizona. I'm not going to talk about John McCain anymore. I do want to mention this article in Politico, and this is fascinating. Looking at Twitter so much. Twitter, the headline is, Twitter says Trump not immune from getting kicked off. Twitter said Tuesday that not even President Donald Trump is immune from being kicked off the platform. The social media company ruled against vitriolic tweets offer leeway for world leaders whose statements are newsworthy, but that is, quote, is not a blanket exception for the president or anyone else in this policy. Okay. And this article goes on and how Donald did all caps against Iran's current president, Hassan Rouhani. And so anyhow, there you go. Oh, we don't care about First Amendment stuff here. No, we're going to get into, we're going to ban vitriolic speech. I mean, what is that? I mean, what is hate speech? Well, some say it's just anything that's offensive to whatever group. I mean, it's unbelievable. These words cannot be defined. Speech, it's very difficult to define this. Banning anything on the internet, is really, I think, a terrible idea. I love free speech. I love freedom of ideas. I let them out there. So if the left if they're going to get so upset that they lost in 2016, they're going to yell and scream during the Senate hearings of David Kavanaugh. Now they're yelling and screaming on Twitter, and they're not going to let a conservative voice on Twitter. I mean, I tell you, if they ban President Trump, wherever Donald goes to do his little tweets or whatever they're going to be called now, I'm going with him. Okay. A lot of people will go with him. So I hope Twitter doesn't do this. I hope they wake up. Actually, I'm hoping Twitter's making money now. I know they've struggled to make money. I would love for them to make lots of money, but I would love for them to back off of this incredible leftist idea and threatening to kick people off, like they kicked that one guy off. I can't remember his name, that conservative, they all ganged up on that guy. That's outrageous. Yeah, the InfoWars guy. So anyhow, Ted Cruz also makes a good point about, the Democrats just want to relitigate 2016 election. They still can't get over that Donald Trump won, and they've been trying so hard to undo that election. Okay, that's ridiculous. Okay, and that's really, we're not a banana republic. We have elections. Okay, so Ted Cruz is making a great point. And so I even had friends at work, a friend at work just complaining about the treatment of Merrick Garland, and how Obama nominated him after Judge Scalia had passed away, nominated him, but Senator McConnell waited till after the election to start that process. So I'm sorry. Things like this have happened before in the Senate. This is how it works. Okay, when the Republicans in power, things are going to go our way as much as possible. When the Democrats are in power, they try their things. So there's going to be a big debate on how that goes, and what comes around goes around. Okay, and so that's the way it goes. I wanted to close with a scripture and a little story. John 14:15, I believe it is. And Jesus said, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. I want to just close just sharing. I love listening to podcasts. And I was listening to this one podcast. It talks about marriage, from our faith. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I like how this couple, they talk about marriage and strengthening marriage. And then they interviewed this other couple and they share their story. And I give them a lot of credit for sharing the story. And they were honest, I think, and humble. But I think they were really wrong. Okay. And the other interviewers, the host couple that had these guys on their show, didn't point anything out like that. They kind of just listened and just said that was bold and beautiful. And I really just disagree with that. And let me explain why and what happened. So this couple, they say they got married and they're strong in our faith. And then the guy, like 3 months, 4 months, 5 months into it, he decides, like, he leaves the church, basically. I mean, he goes to church, but he doesn't believe in the faith anymore. And, of course, his wife is distraught, okay? So apparently he was posing as someone else, or, I mean, I can't believe how unfair this would be to this woman to marry someone of a common faith, and then right after the marriage, the guy bolts from the faith. He's even struggling if he believes in God. I mean, this is really crazy. This is a trend nowadays. And sure enough, he brought up the LGBT thing. I knew he would. I knew he would bring up the LGBT issue and then use that as an excuse to leave the church. And she said that she was considering divorcing him. Many of her friends said that she should divorce him. Now, this is their decision, of course. But at the end of this podcast, the host asked for opinions, and this is and feedback, and this is my opinion and feedback. I think when this is, I've got a lot of different thoughts on this, and try to be concise as possible. I mean, if they're not going to follow the Bible and biblical teachings, I think sometimes we should, let other people know about what our faith is and not encourage them to go down these paths. So unfortunately, this guy goes down this path, and it's almost like he's dragging his wife down this path too, away from the restored gospel of Jesus Christ. Okay, and so that's sad. Of course, you're free to choose. No one's going to stop you from doing things like this. The gospel's all about free to choose. You can choose which way you want to go, but you can't choose the consequences. Then they had a child, and you talked about the struggles they're having in raising her, and what faith is she going to have. And when she turns 8, which is the age of accountability in our faith, that we believe that's when an 8-year-old can choose to be baptized in our faith if they desire. And so the mom is already stressed out. She shared on the podcast about her child turning 8. So I just find this like the hosts are just like, oh, this is wonderful, this is great, and we're afraid to critique this. We're afraid to be bold and go, have you thought about, this path you're going down? I mean, what is going to be your new religion? Okay, because if you leave one faith, you're going to replace it with another. If, even atheism is a belief system, if atheism really even exists. Most people say the atheists are praying when the plane is going down. So my feelings are that I feel like this was really misguided. I think this couple, they're making a big mistake, and that is my critique of that. I can't say that. And so I do feel for people like this. I know them, and they were my friends before when they're in our faith, and they're still my friends out. And when they leave the church, of course, I'm going to love them. And yet, if they ask me for my opinion, and if I interview them on a podcast, I definitely would want to share with them that they might want to consider some of these consequences of these actions, and not just like encourage them and oh, well, this is great, And it is neat that this couple is staying together in one regard, but in the other regard, they're definitely violating the commandments of God. Okay, at least the husband is, and I think. The Bible teaches us, to stand up for the gospel of Jesus Christ. Okay. And so I think we need to live our convictions. And I guess I know in therapy that you just listen and you don't interject your own opinions. And I think this younger couple interviewing this couple was doing just that. But also, this was a podcast advertised for members of the Church of Jesus Christ, the Latter-day Saints. And I think we should stand up for our faith. I did mention to him in an email that the words Jesus Christ were never even mentioned in this podcast, or the restored gospel of Jesus Christ. And so I think we can really veer from the gospel. We get caught up in these other issues, and we'll use those as an excuse, not to have, a division of labor, in a family. And, a typical family in the restored gospel, in our faith, is that usually the husband tries to provide for the family, and then the wife can help out in other roles. And so we are pretty conservative and typical, where in most of the members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the husbands work and the women stay home with their children. Although, we believe that there can be great variability in this. But we really do believe in division of labor, just kind of like Adam and Eve were. And that this really brings a lot of happiness when we can provide. And I really think that is so true. And so I wanted to close with you that keeping the commandments of God is very important. I encourage everyone to think about that. And really thank you for listening, even though my voice is barely there. This is Philip Koerper, and this is the Philip Koerper Show, and it's copyright 2018. Thank you so much.